Dr. Spinks, if you would please take it away. Uh-oh, I think you're muted, Dr. Spinks.
That usually helps if you guys can hear me. I know we're talking about hard of hearing, but that makes it even more difficult. So, well, thank you very much for joining me today. I was looking at the list of people who had logged in, see if I saw any familiar names. For those of you who have attended a couple of our different talks that we've done through the library system, welcome back. You might get a few redundant slides as we talk a little bit about the center and programs we offer, but for those of you who are new, hopefully we have a lot of exciting information to share today. So as I said, today our discussion is going to be about assistive listening devices and those applications that are designed to help the people who are hard of hearing navigate social environments. So this is just a little bit about me. I've been an audiologist for just about 20 years, and I've been at the Center for Hearing and Speech for 11 of those. Worked in ENT practices, some private practice before I really settled into my home here. One of the things that I love most about the center is that we are a nonprofit organization. So let's talk a little bit about who the center is if you're not familiar with us. As I said, we are a nonprofit. We see individuals from all walks of life. And essentially our mission is to ensure access to communication for everybody. Okay? We have 5 different programs that we support here at the center. Audiology, and which case that's, I'm the director of audiology. So we do full diagnostic hearing evaluations. We work with hearing aids, cochlear implants, assistive devices, which is kind of today's topic, and also hearing protection. We have a speech language department, in which case we have speech language pathologists that work both here in the clinic and in the schools. And they do individual therapy, group therapy, classroom enrichment. They're doing one-on-one as well as virtual therapy, given the state of the pandemic these days. School screening. We have a group of technicians that go into the schools when we are allowed, and we screen children. So prior to the pandemic, we averaged screening between 13 and 15,000 kids. That's very important because early identification, early intervention is going to give them the best academic success, as well as giving parents a heads up on any potential medical concerns they may not be aware of. Hearing conservation. This is a program where we're using technicians and we're going into manufacturing facilities. We will do their sound level metering program. We will do their hearing testing for OSHA regulations, hearing protection, and we travel around the country for this one. So we've gone as far south as Alabama and as far north as Nebraska. So we kind of just take a big old crayon and color across the middle of the United States there. And then Senior Connections, that is our newest program. We're very excited about this. Senior Connections is a collaboration between audiology and our community services department. And so with Senior Connections, we're providing not only hearing testing and free hearing aids, but also social services. We have a social worker on staff, and they're doing, she is coordinating activities and providing access to social needs for seniors in St. Louis City. Try and say that 3 times fast. So we have 3 locations that we work out of. Our main clinic is located on on Manchester in Rock Hill. If anybody's familiar with the area around Hacienda, we're just down the street from there. That's kind of a big landmark. We have a location in St. Louis City. It's part of the Athenia healthcare system on Biddle Street. So if you kind of draw a triangle between the Post-Dispatch building, City Museum, and Athenia, we're a little bit the tip of the triangle there. And we have a location in Jefferson County at the Mercy Jefferson Hospital in Festus. So trying to be as encompassing for all of our population as possible. Okay, so assistive listening devices. Basically, an assistive listening device is any type of device that helps you communicate better in your day-to-day environments, okay? It can be used with or without hearing aids, and the goal is really to overcome the effects of, somebody might have their mic on. There we go. Overcome those effects of background noise, poor acoustics, distance between speakers. So it's any device that helps overcome those barriers. So we're going to talk about a number of different devices today. One of them is the devices that are designed for one-to-one communication. We also have infrared systems, induction loop systems, personal, we call them FM systems. The official term is the personal frequency modulation. Sounds a lot fancier that way. We just call them FM systems. Amplified telephones, hearing aid accessories, as well as we kind of do a hodgepodge of other ALDs. And then we now have, yes, apps for hearing on our tablets and smartphones. So we're going to talk about each one of these categories a little bit further. So for one-to-one communications, an example would be something that's called a pocket talker. This is essentially an amplifier. It's very, very basic. It is a microphone, an amplifier, and a pair of headphones. You can have headphones that go over the ear, cradle around the back of the ear, use the earbuds. So there's all different configurations. Some of them just use something as simple as a AA battery. Others are rechargeable. These are really good for individuals who maybe can't maintain hearing aids anymore. Maybe they're at a stage of their life where just dealing with the maintenance or simply operating a hearing aid is just beyond them. And so they need to talk one-on-one with a caregiver or a family member. They just need a little bit of help, okay? Average cost for these devices is going to be anywhere between $170 and $250. So they're fairly reasonable. You do want to make sure you get a good quality one, simply because the sound, because it's so basic, if you get a very cheaply made one, the sound quality can be quite rough. And if you're already dealing with someone who is hard of hearing, we want to electronically have as little distortion as possible, okay? Infrared systems, these are, an example would be something that's called TV ears. You might have seen commercials for these or seen them in the back of trade magazines. But an individual might wear a headset, kind of like what you see on the screen there. And then there's a base unit that you plug into the television. And what it does is it allows that person to set the volume at a comfortable level for them, but everybody else in the room can hear the volume as it's coming out of the TV. So if you need to give yourself a little boost, or you just need a more direct signal than listening from a sound bar or even the speakers that are built into TVs these days, it's a good option, okay? These are also systems that you might find in larger public facilities such as theaters or museums. The Fox and the Muni both use infrared systems for listening to the productions. And again, for a good quality device, you're looking at somewhere between $130 and $280. Induction loop systems, this is actually something that is very specifically used with hearing aids, okay? So what happens is in a hearing aid, there is a little feature that we call the T-coil. Just stands for telephone coil. And what it does is it creates, or I should say it doesn't create, it transfers the sound from an acoustic signal to a magnetic signal, which is then processed by the hearing aid. So if a facility, such as a church or a theater, if you're in some of the bigger urban areas, such as Chicago, New York, Minneapolis is actually a lot of looped facilities. There's a big looping community up there. The individual can put their hearing aid in T-coil, and then the signal is streamed right to their hearing aid. So instead of having to listen through the environment, it's a direct connection to the presenter or the speakers. We are trying to get as many facilities, public facilities, looped as possible because the signal is just so much better than the infrared or the FM systems. So if you're ever asked by a church or a facility what would be helpful for anyone hard of hearing, ask them to get a loop system. Costing for the loop systems, the facilities can be quite expensive to loop, which is part of the deterrent for many of those places. I mean, to loop the when the Fox was looking at replacing their system, to loop the Fox, it would have cost probably about $75,000. Okay. Now they also have at our clinic here, we just have a counter loop. So it's just a little stand. It sits right by our clinic coordinators at the front desk. And there's about a 2-foot area that's looped. So our patients can put their hearing aid in T-coil and they can hear our staff right through their hearing aids. Nowadays with the plexiglass that we're having to use for the social distancing, we've got glass around our front desk. It makes a big difference, even if it's sliding and with the holes, so speech can come through, there is some muffling of the speech sound. So that's the T system. Anytime you see that blue square with a little ear symbol and a T, that means there's a loop system available. Okay, so FM systems. This is something that you see most often in the schools, but I have a lot of adults in the workforce that also do use FM systems. So they work similar to radio. It's essentially radio signals, okay? So if you have an FM station that you like to listen to, KC 95, for instance, FM systems for hearing aids have dedicated channels themselves, okay? And so we set a channel between a microphone that is worn by the speaker and a receiver that is attached to the hearing aid of the user. And again, we're basically creating a direct connection between those two individuals so that voice is streamed right to their ear, okay? The sound quality of an FM system is greater than that of an infrared system, and not as good as that of a loop system. So that's kind of where your hierarchy is, okay? FM systems are more expensive depending on the number of pieces you have to buy. So you might have to purchase a microphone and 2 receivers, you know, and then it depends on what your model hearing aid is. It could be anywhere from about $1,800 to about $4,000 for an FM system, though. Okay. Amplified telephones. So these are phones that are actually designed for those who are hard of hearing. Some of the phones have larger numbers even, or pictures if you have an individual with some cognitive decline or who is visually impaired as well. The phones all have amplifiers built into them, but they also have tone controls. Some of them do use flashing lights as signalers, or they might even have closed captioning. Closed caption phones are great. Right now, the closed caption phones work primarily through the internet. So a person does have to have a high-speed internet connection. Not sure why I say that anymore these days. I don't think dial-up even exists anymore. So you have to have internet connection to make the captions work. There's one particular phone model that does captions that does not require internet. Paraquad is the only one who has a contract with the state to get that phone though. So the phones, there is actually a state program through Missouri, and individuals who have an income of less than $65,000 can get a free phone. So there are, I believe, 3 or 4 different places where they're kind of hosts for this program. It's called the TAP program. We are one. Paraquad is another, Delta Center for Independent Living, and then Missouri Society for the Blind. So you can go to these organizations, make an appointment. You basically we demonstrate the phones to you, you test them out, find out which one's going to be the best fit for you. We fill out an application. It gets mailed to the state office just outside Kansas City, and then they send the phone directly to your home. So if anybody would like more information about this program, my contact information is at the end of the slides here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about hearing aid accessories and the types of assistive devices that are specifically designed to work with the aids themselves. So just about every single major manufacturer has some type of accessory or assistive device that is compatible with their products. So it could include something such as what we call a streamer, which allows remote function. A lot of times you may have seen somebody adjusting their hearing aid on the case itself or back here behind their ear. But if they have a streamer, it kind of has a remote function, so they don't have to be fiddling up by their ear. Some of them offer Bluetooth compatibility so that you can stream signals from tablets or smartphones. Direct audio input, excuse me, that could be a signal that you receive from a webinar, for instance. Remote microphones, we're going to talk a little bit about remote microphones here in a moment. TV adapters, as well as landline phone adapters. So let's talk about each of these just a little bit more. So a remote microphone that is designed by a hearing aid manufacturer most of the time is going to run off of Bluetooth nowadays. Okay, so these remote microphones are either worn, you can put it on a neck loop, or it can just be worn like on a lapel, but they're ideal for minimizing that signal to noise ratio. Okay. And what we mean by that is the signal or the conversation, the speech, and separating it from the noise that's in the background. So it could be something that's worn if it's a one-on-one situation. Let's say you're just going out to dinner with a family member or a friend. That person can wear the microphone. I've also had individuals use it in the car. So let's say the person who is hard of hearing is the driver or the passenger. The other person in the car will wear the microphone, and then it takes out the car noise, takes out that part of the equation. Or if they're in the back seat. I've had individuals who are in wheelchairs. And if the patient is in a wheelchair and the person is standing behind them, that is a distance thing, but also you've lost that visual representation of speech. So the person who is pushing the chair could wear a remote mic and their voice would stream right into the hearing aids. Okay. All of these products are, the compatibility is manufacturer specific. So you just need to ask your provider, what is the compatible model for my hearing aids? And the average cost could be anywhere from $100 to $500, depending on that company or the model device that you have. Streaming devices, they offer volume control. So as we talked about that remote function, the ability to adjust the volume on your hearing aids, maybe excuse me, maybe the program change. So when we talk about programs and hearing aids, the simplest analogy that I like to use is think about the presets on your radio, okay? So maybe you have your first station is your everyday station. That's your go-to. You get in the car, you turn it on, and that's your favorite station. Well, sometimes I want to listen to maybe classical music. So I'm going to change my preset. Or maybe I want to listen to, I don't know, if you're show tune fans. So you have different presets on your radio. You can have different programs on your hearing aid that are designed for very specific environments. So my patients who are music, either music lovers or performers even, we might have a dedicated setting that they use for music, okay? Or let's say they're golfers and we need to have like an outdoor program, something with a little bit better wind control or something like that. So you can have dedicated programs on your devices. Streamers do also offer a Bluetooth connection in some cases, so to your smartphones or your tablets. A lot of hearing aids these days, the newer devices are direct. So the streamer is actually not as necessary anymore. We can now have the hearing aid talk directly to the smartphone or the tablet without the middleman. So again, it all just depends on the model of the device. Okay, TV and phone adapters. So, and when we talk about phone adapters, in this case, we're really talking about landlines. So one of the biggest complaints that individuals who are hard of hearing have always had is the difficulty using the phone. You have no visual guide. Phone quality can sometimes be a bit iffy, okay? And so how do we address this problem? We've been working on it for so many years, as long as I can remember. And so we've come up with, we now have a pretty good solution for the cell phones. We're using Bluetooth for that now, and that's really working out pretty well for all of my patients. But what do we do about those landline situations? Yes, landlines are not as prevalent as they used to be, but there's still a fair number. And so the devices that you see, let me get my arrow on the right screen. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this one right here and this one right here, these are both phone adapters designed to be used with landlines. And again, they are manufacturer specific, but you plug them in through the jack, and then it sends that phone signal to the hearing aid directly, okay? The other three devices you see on the screen there, those are for TV. So similar to the TV ears, instead of using an infrared signal, they are using Bluetooth, okay? And so we can make it so that, again, the signal from the TV is streaming directly to the hearing aid user, and that the volume in the room for other people can be set at a comfortable level. Costs on devices like this, there's a huge range, but generally speaking, you'd be looking at maybe a couple $100 per device. Okay. Other ALD systems, they could include anything such as amplified alarm clocks. So alarm clocks that use flashing lights or even a pillow shaker. We've got some alarm clocks that I like to joke around, they would wake the dead because they will get you out of bed even if you don't want to be. Doorbell alerts. So again, we might use some flashing lights or some type of remote signal to a phone, alerting somebody that there is an individual at the door. We talked about the bed shakers already, home security or smoke detectors. So we're using a specified alerting system. For those of my patients who are profoundly hard of hearing, a lot of times you have like a home base unit, and you just connect these devices or pair these different devices to one base unit. So you can have security systems, baby monitors, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. You can pair them all to this home station, essentially. There's also, we kind of throw this in under ALDs, but TV closed captioning as well as conversation captioning. We're going to talk about that one a little bit more when we get to the apps section, okay? But all of these things are just simply considered assistive devices. Okay, so where do you find all these cool toys? You can find them either, they can be purchased through licensed providers such as myself, but there's also online retail suppliers. Teltex is one that we use quite frequently. There's also a place called hearmore.com and of course Amazon. You want to be very careful about where you shop because you want to make sure you're getting the right product for the right application, okay? There's a lot, I think we all know, there's a lot of junk on the internet, okay? So if you are looking for any type of assistive device and you ever have any questions, please reach out to a professional and we can help you navigate that confusing world of what do I need and where should I get it from, okay? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the apps. Yes, there are apps for hard of hearing. So I think we all know what an app is, but it is essentially a software platform designed to integrate with our electronics these days, our smartphones, our tablets. They basically are a program that you can run. Okay. So there's lots of different types of apps that are specifically hearing related. Ones where you can do online hearing screenings, ones that are designed specifically for tinnitus or that ringing sound in your ears, sound level meters, apps that are specifically for the hearing aid manufacturers. Oral rehab, we're gonna talk about each of these a little bit more. Think of that as hearing therapy, okay? And then those are just those other ones that are just kind of specifically communication related. So hearing screening apps, if you go onto your Google Play or your App Store, I mean, there's dozens of them, okay? Some of them are junk, let's be honest. But there's two of them out there that we kind of trust, essentially. One of them is called Hear Screen. It was actually developed in association with the American Academy of Audiology. So we have a reliable reference in how it was designed, okay? But with this particular screening, you're repeating numbers in the presence of background noise. So you have to wear a pair of headphones And then what happens is you do the little test, and then at the end of the test, it says, oh, you're good, or oh, here's some contact information for a provider in your area, okay? There's another one, Signia hearing test. Signia is actually a hearing aid brand. The reason I put that one on here is because you have a digits version, but then you also have nonsense words. And so what the purpose of the Signia hearing test is that you repeat these nonsense words, so you can't pull from the context of a conversation, all right? You test the right ears and the left ear separately, whereas with the first one, you are testing both ears together. And again, they provide, contact information if you request it. Now, I will say, these should not be used as any type of diagnostic tool. I have actually taken both of these tests. One time I passed, other times I've failed. So use it as a tool, but not a diagnosis, all right? It's kind of fun to play with sometimes though. Okay, tinnitus app. So tinnitus is that we refer to that as the sound that you might perceive in your ear that cannot be associated with anything in the environment. Sometimes people will say that it sounds like ringing, buzzing, roaring, whooshing noises. I've heard all kinds of descriptions. It can come, it can go, it can be there constantly, it can get louder, it can get softer, it can change pitch. So for those people that are affected by tinnitus, there's a couple things that can be done. One is if you have hearing loss in addition to the tinnitus, by treating the hearing loss, we actually have about a 50-60% chance that when you have your hearing aids on, you don't notice the ringing anymore. And that is because we are stimulating the brain in a way that just doesn't happen naturally, okay? Another option is you can do meditation training or cognitive behavioral training, but sometimes you just want to sit back and relax, but not listen to that annoying noise. Maybe you don't have hearing loss that needs to be treated, okay? So these are different apps that are designed to help those with the ringing sound. Most of them are free, and you have a variety of sound samples that you can listen to, okay? So let me click over one screen here. All of these are available on your Google Play or your Apple App Store, all right? So what you see on the screen in front of you, these are some screenshots of a couple different apps that are out there. The black one here, this is the Widex Zen. I happen to think that it's kind of the most comprehensive in terms of the different sound sources that's out there. I mean, it's kind of my favorite. It's one I actually have on my phone. The other ones, I think this one is the, Sound Oasis. And so you can actually kind of filter the noise in different ways if you like to play with that. So, I mean, the trick with tinnitus apps is just kind of play around with the different ones available and see what works for you. Okay, sound level meter apps. Now, these are probably not going to be something that the average person downloads from their app store, but geeks like me who are interested in what's going on around them on a sound basis, we like to get in there and see what's happening. So the actual sound level meter, you may have heard that term before, but most people refer to it when you're talking about like environmental noise for manufacturing plants. So yes, somebody actually comes into these plants, and that's one of the things that our techs do for hearing conservation. They go into these plants with these big mics, and we're actually measuring environmental sound levels. But we also might have the employees wear dosimeters, so we can take a recording of their workday and the noise levels they're exposed to. Well, if you don't have the professional equipment, you can download an app on your phone and do something maybe not quite as accurate, but still fun to play with. All right. So if we go here, so this is an example of the Decibel X, this black screenshot you see on there. So you see a maximum level, and then you see kind of an average level. Now, just to kind of give you a frame of reference, your average conversation is going to be about 55, 60 dB, okay? For OSHA purposes, if you have a max or an average of 85, you should be wearing hearing protection, okay? Let's go back here, excuse me. Another app, and this one is actually quite helpful, is the SoundPrint app. I love this one. This is a new one. But what it does is you can go onto the SoundPrint app, type in, either look at it on a map or type in a location, and you can see the noisiest restaurants in your area. Well, let's be honest. I mean, restaurants aren't that noisy right now because people aren't allowed inside. But back in the days when you would walk into TGI Fridays on a Saturday night and there'd be 200 people in that restaurant, I'd have patients that would say, I turned around and walked out. It was too noisy. But so it does allow you to look at anywhere in your, you can do a searchable thing for quietest restaurants in my area. It's all based on user ratings. So again, that you can take a sample of the sound and then you kind of rate it. Is it quiet? Is it moderately quiet? Is it very loud? But it's a nice little app to play with, and my patients have found it to be quite useful. Okay. So now we have those apps that are actually designed by the manufacturers and that are compatible with their product line. Just about all of the top 7 manufacturers, they all have these apps that are designed for their hearing aids. They work with both Apple and Android products, okay? Most of the apps are going to allow some type of remote function. So again, if you don't want to be touching the device itself or you don't have a streamer, you can do it on an app, okay? Maybe you can control the volume, your programs. Some of the apps allow you to make customizable sound. So if you've ever played with like a stereo equalizer and you're like, oh, I'm going to tweak that treble a little bit. Some of the apps do allow you to kind of make these custom sounds with your hearing aids, and then you can save it. And let's say you're messing around with it and you're like, oh, Eureka, this is what I want my hearing aids to sound like. You can take that to your provider, or we can actually see those changes you make in some cases. And they're like, okay, this is what sounds good to him. Because when we are fitting devices, we're working based on mathematics. We're working based on measurements that we take in the office, okay? But we're not inside your brain. We can interpret what we think is going to sound good to you and we know it's appropriate for your hearing loss, but brains and math don't always agree. And so these apps do allow you to make some of that choice yourself, okay? The Widex Moment and the Evoke apps, they have a little feature in them that's called the Sound Sense. They call it Sound Sense Learn. And it's kind of an AI thing. And so let's say you are at a restaurant by yourself and there's a mariachi band playing in the background. And you're like, oh, I'm here by myself. I really want to just hear the music today, but I don't want to hear all the people talking, in the booths next to me or over on the other side of the room. You can go into your app, and it's like when you go to the eye doctor, it's which is better, A or B? And you dial it in till you hear just exactly what you want. Then you can save that. But then let's say maybe the next time you are with a group of people and you don't want to hear the mariachi band. You do your A/B comparisons until you find that sound that you really like and you save it. Some of the apps will kind of have a memory. So if you go back to that geolocation, they kind of put the hearing aids into that setting automatically. It's crazy what some of these apps can do. There's another company, the Oticon On app. It can actually make like recipes with other Wi-Fi products in your home. So you could hear the laundry. If you have one of those fancy laundry ovens with Bluetooth, that your food's done, your laundry's done, and it'll tell you. So we're getting into the Jetson era here. If anybody remembers that cartoon, The Jetsons. Okay, communication apps. So these are apps that are designed for just navigating a hearing world. Live transcribed by Google. This is Android users only, but it actually does captioning of a live conversation. I have it on my phone here, and so I can pull it up. Let me get over here. Well, I did have it on my phone. I was going to show it to you guys, but I can't find it. Anyway, so what it does is it's using the microphones on the phone itself, and it will sit there and it will transcribe or closed caption the entire conversation. There it is. Okay. So as I'm speaking, the microphone, can you guys see? There we go. So as I'm talking, in theory, see if I can get it to work. It's usually pretty good, believe it or not. I actually use this a lot in the clinic with my patients who are more severe to profound hard of hearing. Well, it's gonna be the one time it doesn't work, of course. You gotta love technology, right? All these great toys at our fingertips, and the one time you want it to work, it doesn't. Okay, well, if it starts working, I'll show you. But it'll actually do, as you kind of have ever seen closed captions on a TV, it'll closed caption the entire conversation, okay? You can even save it. If let's say you're at a medical appointment, you can save that conversation to review later, which can be quite helpful. Another one that works quite well is you can close caption the phone calls on the cell phone. So I know Caption works with Apple products, with iPhone or the iPad. Hamilton CapTel will close caption Android based. It doesn't work with Apple. We've found that out the hard way. Ava and some of these other ones, these are kind of systems that are designed for larger facilities in mind. So if you ever attend a conference and they provide closed captioning, it's typically like through the Ava system. That way, those people who are attending the conference, they can hear what they can read, I'm sorry, what the presenters are saying. Some other communication apps that are out there is there's subtitle viewers. So let's say you're away from home and you are at a restaurant or you're at the gym and there's a show on. The subtitle viewer will allow the camera on your phone basically to kind of read the actor's lips, and then it puts it on your phone. So people like that one. Let's say you have an older movie that doesn't have the captions embedded. One of the subtitle viewers has like every movie imaginable, and you just tell it what movie you're watching, and then it puts the subtitles on as it's hearing the audio signal from the TV, okay? Sound alert, this is something that my patients who tend to be more severe to profound of hard of hearing, it's Fortify. But it allows you to set like environmental awareness settings. So it'll do a vibration or, excuse me, flash the light if it senses some type of significant environmental sound, such as a siren or a heavy truck going down the road or something like that. Okay. There's an example of the Hamilton CapTel on the left there, and then the subtitles app there. Okay, so oral rehab, this is kind of how, as I mentioned, this is like hearing therapy, if you will. Okay, so we have all these amazing toys, I call them toys, technology. We have all this amazing technology that we have at our fingertips now for these devices, okay? But devices are only part of the equation, because ultimately the device is a tool, but we still have to use our brains to hear, okay? And so like when you get a replacement knee or replacement hip, you go into the hospital and the surgeon puts in the hardware. Well, then you have to go to your physical therapist and learn how to use your new knee, learn how to use your new hip, how to stand correctly, how to get your gait back in a smooth motion. Oral rehab is physical therapy for your ears, okay? And it's a really critical aspect for your hearing journey and ultimate long-term success. So there's some apps out there that are free, and most of these are in a game format. So even though you're doing therapy, you're actually playing games. Here Coach, Games for Heroes, those are designed, so this one on your left, I think it's your left, am I right? The little cars over here, I think that's the Game for Heroes app there. And so you're hearing an audio signal and it's asking you, going through narrations and saying, you know, what's this missing word? What's that missing word? It can be as simple as we start out kind of at a multiple choice level to fill in the blanks, okay? But it's all just about training the brain how to use the hearing you still have most effectively, okay? There's also guided programs that you can purchase, okay? So the LACE program is, it's like I said, it's about 13 classes. This is an independent program, so there's really no professional follow-up, but you can purchase that. It's an online program. Clear was actually designed by Dr. Nancy Ty Murray and Dr. Spears at Washington University, right here in St. Louis. But it is a program it's like a monthly subscription, and there's lots of different lessons. I mean, I think they have up to like 50 different lessons. Most of them are the game-based, but you do have a professional that follows you as well, giving you some encouragement, some insights, and things like that. Sound Success and Communication Corner, although they are designed by the cochlear implant companies, everybody can use these. You don't have to have a cochlear implant to use these programs, and they are free. So that's nice. Okay, those are just those screenshots that I took on there. All right, so that's kind of what I had in terms of the actual presentation. I'm certainly happy to take any questions or anything like that. I believe I had a prerequisite request. Somebody wanted me to talk a little bit about hearing loss configurations. And so when we're diagnosing hearing loss, there's essentially 3 different types of loss that we can diagnose: a sensory neural, mixed, or a conductive. And then you have the shape of the loss. So for the average person, when your hearing loss develops, whether it's just due to age or noise exposure, it has what we call a sloping configuration. So typically the low pitches you hear better than the high pitches. But for some other individuals, and these are typically due more to genetic factors or other comorbid diseases that affect the hearing, you can have a reverse, and you can even have a cookie bite. So a cookie bite is where you can hear better on the highs and the lows, but not in the mids. It's literally a cookie bite. Or the reverse is where you don't hear the lows, but you can hear the highs. So if you'd like to learn more about hearing loss, hearing the diagnostic evaluations and the different types of loss, we do have a presentation we did for the library, which I believe might have been recorded, or we might be doing again in the near future. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Sinks. Does anyone who participated here today have any questions for the good doctor? Feel free to shout them out or use the chat box to type them in. I did have a question. The sound level apps, are those good for detecting sound, the level of sound, like at an outdoor sporting event too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Fantastic. I one time measured a Pujols home run at about 105 decibels.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Thank you. And Dr. Sink's information, contact information is here on the computer screen, but if anybody doesn't get it before we close out the presentation today, feel free to send me an email and I will send it on to you as well. Fantastic. All right. Well, I don't think we have too many questions coming at us today.
That's okay.
I agree. It was fantastic. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. If you have any questions or you would like Dr. Sink's contact information, please send me an email and let me know. Dr. Sinks, thank you again. I appreciate your time again. And we will absolutely do this again in the future.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for coming, everybody.
Bye-bye now.